the pandemic, I heard you speak at an event for the Entrepreneurs Organization. It was very interesting. It was very much off the cuff, and you regaled us with all of these stories of celebrity and of success and all of these things. And it was like super inspiring and it was super entertaining. Um, and at the time I was so impressed and I was so excited. Um, and I want to do a little bit of that today, but more than anything, I want to get into the granularity of your life and your career. I think it's easy to zoom out and just see success after success after success. But I'm sure that there were at least a couple of trials and tribulations along the way. And I think
This is the restaurant business. There's a lot of trials and tribulations.
um, and I want to start kind of at the beginning. I want to go back to you in college, and I'm curious to know, did focusing on economics impact your
And
worldview as a hotelier and restaurateur?
not at all. I just,
Really?
that's one of the things I speak about in when I speak to college kids. I'm like, how the hell do you know what you want to be when you're 19 years old?
Sure.
It's kind of the dumbest thing ever. Like, you're going to school to learn a career. I am so much more impressed with kids that take a gap year or two.
Sure.
So they think they want to be a rocket scientist, and then they go work at a rocket company. Then they find out what a shit job this is. They don't want to do it. And I suggest everybody do that, because I had no idea I wanted to be. The reason I was a economics major at USC is because my mentor was a very famous economist.
Right. And then you were into beer, so you started building breweries, which is wild when you think about it, especially at your age, right?
Well, I started brewing beer at a very young age. I think Jimmy Carter passed a law that you could buy a homebrew kit when I was 13 years old. The old Popular Science magazine, bought the kit, brought it home, told mom it was a science experiment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Next thing I know, by college, I'm doing full grain brewing. Not that I was the best brewer in the world, but I was better than any of my peers.
And so, but how did that lead to building other breweries? And then ultimately, how did that lead to you building your own?
Well, I actually built my own brewery first. So I built Manhattan Beach Brewery 36 years ago. I was walking up the street after surfing at the Manhattan Beach Pier. I saw a for lease sign go into the window, and that for lease sign was for a business called Pies and Burgers. I don't think that would be a huge success today or even back then at the beach. Who's going to have pie and burger at the beach? But here nor there, the landlords, the Johnson family, they were a very wealthy family that inherited this property from their father, and they loved the idea of a brewery. And they were like 30 years old, and I was 21 years old or 20 years old. So they gave me my first break. I went up against Johnny Rockets and one of the yogurt companies. I can't remember, Penguins. And they chose me, and I didn't have enough money in the check I wrote as a deposit. I didn't have enough money to cover it. I had to go home and beg all my family for.
And so you open it, and then you flash through, almost 40 years later, and it's still operating. I mean, you just went through a recent rebrand, but I mean, you look at, forgetting a global pandemic, just a blip on the radar over the course of the last 40 years, but like multiple economic downturns and upturns over the years. You look at what minimum wage was when you started it, and you look at what it is today. How have you kept that business for decades? Busy, profitable, and compelling for the community, which the community has changed a lot over the last almost 40 years as well.
Well, I think that's probably why I changed it, because Manhattan Beach was a very sleepy town, in the sense the restaurants 40 years ago were just kind of more, pubs, taverns. There was no real cutting edge food. So I built the brewery, and I got to tell you, there was a line, no joke, for 6 months to get into this place. And I was able to pay back all my investors in green dollar bills in 90 days. Back then, nobody had a credit card 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It was all cash business, which I really love those days. But but now nobody has any cash. They only got credit cards.
Sure.
So it was a very good run. And then people from around the country, New York, Chicago, Midwest, they all came out to see my brewery, because I think I was the number 6 brew pub in in California. And that's how I started building breweries for other people.
And so I wanna jump to the hotel. And the reason I do is because I think that success leaves clues. Also, I mean, I can only talk about my firsthand experience, but every time I've jumped from something I know a lot about to something that I don't know a lot about, the universe has a tendency to kick me in the ass. But you look at the Shade Hotel, and I mean, this was a massive success, pretty much out the gate.
Well, I think it might have been a big success because I wasn't in the business. So I didn't design it like a regular hotel. I designed it how I wanted it to be for me. So I wanted it to be like when you check in, you got to call your buddy and go, dude, you got to check out this room. It changes colors with the dial. So I just did all these crazy things, steam rooms and bathtubs out on the decks overlooking the ocean. Just did stuff that no one else did. And because of that, I was lucky enough to win that Condé Nast Top 100 Hotels in the World my first few months being open.
What else though? I mean, did you have a muse? Did you follow models? I mean, was it all gut? Because you also have to run the
Yeah,
business of being a
it
hotelier
was.
as well.
Well, I like to take that Ronald Reagan approach and just hire really good people around me.
Yeah.
I had a dear friend who gave Aunt Sance, who our kids were best friends up in Palos Verdes. She came out of the hotel chain network, like the real high end hotels in Europe, and was retired raising kids in PV. And I called her one night and I said, because remember, I wasn't looking to do a hotel, I was looking to do a restaurant
Right.
up at that plaza, Metlock's Plaza. And the city said that my idea, a high end Mexican restaurant, made no sense. But mind you, I was a few years ahead of my curve there. But they said to me, but nobody wants the hotel anymore. Do you want that? And I said, sure, I can do a hotel. But I will say that a restaurant has a dining room, a mezzanine, a patio, a kitchen, a couple of bathrooms, and a storeroom to design. When I did the hotel, there must have been 50 design points, from laundry rooms to meeting rooms to conference rooms to pool decks, gazebos. I mean, I can go on and all. The hotel was definitely the most challenging thing.
And if we were to parallel the two and we were to look at the brew pub and the hotel, because at this point you're 12 years into your career, roughly.
Yeah, maybe 20. I don't know.
Um,
I'd say 20 years in. 20 years in
what were the
with the
parallels?
hotel.
What were the things that you did
Just
right with both that you used as a model moving forward?
Well, I think the most important thing is your personality. So it's how you work the room. So, my father in law would work the room at the hotel at night. I would be working the room at the restaurants at night, but everybody in town knew who I was. So I'd bump into him, but work in the room. And that's how I think you make a great restaurant. Everybody knows you. They know they can get a seat when they come in. They know you'll take care of them. And, hospitality at the end of the day is what it's all about. Find the yes, make everybody happy, make them feel special. Look, a lot of people can cook great food and they can design a great restaurant, but if you can't have the hospitality component, you're done for.
And then how does that translate to tourists? So it's because the way you talk, I think to myself, I mean, this is a local celebrity who built these beautiful places for locals. But I mean, I would assume that a huge portion of your business is is tourists. Yes.
Not really. Manhattan Beach has become kind of the culinary capital of LA. Manhattan Beach can definitely support us, and Hermosa and El Segundo and Palos Verdes. I would say the fluctuation in our business between summer and winter is swings about 15%. It's not a lot. Like I interviewed a manager the other day from a oceanfront restaurant in Santa Barbara, and he told me there was like a 50% swing between winter and summer. 50%. I mean, I don't even know how you. That reminds me. One time I opened a restaurant and it was at a Staples Center, whatever you call it now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the hardest thing I ever did because everybody wanted their dinner between 6:30 and 7:30, and they expected to be sitting on the floor at the Laker game by 7:31. So those are restaurants that, like, anytime I get a call from an arena for a restaurant, I go, no, thank you. That's to me was the hardest thing I ever ran.
And then
10 when the 10-year lease was up, 10 years we were out.
And then if we look at Manhattan Beach as this bubble, as this microcosm, again, like you're deeply seated in the area, you're opening a bunch of things there. I mean, we hadn't even talked about Strand House, which is prolific in its own right, and all of these concepts. But what did you learn when you went outside of that market about like how to integrate yourself into the market when you couldn't be there and you couldn't be the master of ceremonies night?
Well, it's harder. I always saw that show. What's that show? Undercover Boss. And I thought, this is so much crap. How do they not know who the president of, Best Buy is? But then, here I am with 25 rockin' brews around the country. I roll into Florida and I can get to a whole dinner with my family on a way to Disneyland in Orlando. And they don't know who I am.
Yeah.
So it is true. But you try to put in those operating procedures, the training, a lot of it goes into training. I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of restaurants where they don't train people. They don't tell them to find the yes. If somebody makes a mistake, they don't stand behind it. Look, if you're late on a reservation, buy them a drink, then they're happy. If the steak's medium rare and they say it's not medium rare, ask them, do they want more temperature on it or less temperature? Don't fight with them because you'll lose every time. So, but around the country, I try to do it more with videos and presentations and staff. If you train great managers and grow great managers, what I mean by that is my last president of my company started as a front desk manager at the hotel. So she grew her way all the way to president. So that's what I like to see. Very rarely do I go out of my group of employees to find people. Once in a while I have to.
And is that a clear roadmap? I mean, when somebody starts with you, is their understanding that you could work your way all the way to the executive suite?
Absolutely. Everybody knows it. And some people don't want to grow with the company.
Sure.
They're just, look, I'm so happy about I can't think of the last name, but there's 3 sisters that worked for me at Rock and Fish in Manhattan Beach. And they all used that restaurant to get through their careers. And I had them each for like 4 or 5 years. And they were the best employees ever. And now my kids get their teeth cleaned by the girl that was formerly our waitress, and she went through dental school.
And how do you keep them engaged? I mean, I think that's the question that's on the minds of so many people listening is not everyone is a lifer, 100%. And this is a transitional job for so many people. How do you keep them engaged when their greatest ambition is ultimately to leave?
Well, you lead by example. So I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a restaurant with an owner of some other restaurant and the guy snaps his fingers, bring us 2 glasses of this. And like, I would never do that to my staff. I wouldn't be. So if you treat them with the respect they deserve and you do what they see you on the floor changing, like the other day I went into a restaurant and the keg blew, it was empty. And the ladies, when the bartender says, I don't know where the keg is, and I ran in the cooler and did it, like that shocks people. But that's what an owner does. I remember on a Sunday, they couldn't get a roto-rooter guy for the drain in the bathroom, not the toilet, but the center drain. It was backing up. I ran to Home Depot in my Tesla, threw in a little auger, did it myself. And I think the staff, like, that's some folklore, I mean, they're like, the owner came in and cleaned the bathroom drain. And that's what you got to do. If you want to be an owner, you have to be respected and you have to respect your team.
And so you're leading by example, but you also have to make sure that your leaders do the same. And one of the biggest complaints of most independent restaurateurs today is that there's a leadership gap. That even if you can find line level employees that are willing to own their roles within the organization, the leaders are difficult to cultivate and difficult to find. And when you look at a concept like Rock and Brews, you guys are growing at a fast clip. So your need for leaders could potentially, or I'm sure has at some point in the past, been hampered by, or your need for, or your ability to open new locations has been hampered by your ability to acquire leaders. Yeah.
Well, Rock and Brews has something very unique going for it. It's rock and roll, and people love rock and roll. And what I mean by that is we let, come as you are is one of our, credos there to the employee. So the employee gets to show up in their favorite Who t-shirt, the big pierced ear, tattooed sleeve, left arm, and they feel very comfortable. And Rock and Brews was one of the first restaurants to really embrace those type of people. And that's kind of why we've had such a good success. Less corporate, a little bit cooler. We still look for results and we still, hold people accountable. But at the end of the day, they enjoy going to work. You have to make it fun to go to work. And if it's a busy restaurant, time flies. So those are the two things you got to provide: busy and fun.
What do you do for a living, Michael? Like when people ask you what you do for a living, day to day, because I'm sure that role has certainly evolved over the last, let's call it 4 decades. But what's your core competency? What do you think you're best in the world at?
I would say design, food, drinks. I just have a real high standard. So food, I've been lucky enough that I've gotten to travel the world at some of the finest restaurants. I just really enjoy exceptional food. So the salmon has to be the best piece of salmon. The shrimp, when you make a shrimp cocktail, you boil it for a couple of minutes and then you chill it right away. Then it's crispy, crisp when you punch it. You go to a lot of restaurants, you get a shrimp cocktail, it's like this piece of rubber on your lip. Like they're not looking at the details. Today I just did a French fry tasting. Believe it or not, doing fresh French fries is the hardest thing in the
Oh yeah,
world.
for sure.
If you've been to an In-N-Out burger, sometimes they're great. Another time you're halfway out of the drive-thru and they're already soggy. So today today I actually did a starch test on, I'm trying to think of the name of the potato. It's the one they use for Chipabec, not Ketabek, Chipabec potatoes. So I'll do cuttings. And then tomorrow I'm doing a bagel cutting for a new salmon platter. And I'm trying different types of smoked salmon we're doing with different woods in our smoker. So a lot of that, I just want everything to be the best.
And then over the years, how has your role evolved? What were like the key critical hires that freed you up to do the things that you're best in the world at?
I think the best thing in the world at is working the floor. And I don't do it as much as I used to. I just have, 6 kids, grandkids. I've got a big family. I work corporately most of the day. And, today I'm on the phone with Paul Stanley, booking a jet to go to a ribbon cutting and a grand opening in Oklahoma next weekend. So I'm just saying a lot of corporate stuff during the day. And by the end of the day, I don't want to work the floor.
Right.
And you don't ever want to be on a floor if you're not wanting to be on the floor. But I just opened Brewco Social, which was the rebranding, the reimagined Brewco in downtown Manhattan Beach in front of the pier, and I worked 40 days on the floor, and it was so nice to be on the floor again. So I actually love it, but I also love being at home.
And what did that evolution look like over time? Because I would assume that
That
you went from needing to be on the floor to wanting to be on the floor, right?
I would say it all happened with COVID.
Really?
COVID was a real big disruptor, and every restaurateur that listens to this show knows, like, if you got through COVID and you survived, fuck, that was like, you could talk about economic downturns or recessions or all that shit, nothing compared to COVID. So I remember I went into I'm like a member of a downtown business professional association in Manhattan Beach, and it was like March 17th, 16th, whenever, like a day before the world shut down.
Yeah.
And they were all talking about their social media budgets and all. We should spend money on this and a yard sale. An outdoor sale. And I said, are you guys fucking crazy? Guys, don't pay your landlords, hoard your money, and you're going to be shut down in the next 24 to 48 hours. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And literally 48 hours later, we were all shutting our restaurants down and our businesses, and to survive that, and then having to fight politically in our towns to get outdoor dining approved, and it was bad. And I live in California. That's a capital B bad. Like, the government here was really tough on us.
Were there any blessings that came out of the pandemic? Do you guys today run a more efficient operation as a result?
No, there's no blessings from COVID. I lost the best general manager. I don't know if you remember Michael Morissette.
Yeah.
So I lost him to COVID. So he was the managing partner at the Strand House. Nothing good came from COVID. It was difficult. I just remember sitting on my deck at my house with a yellow pad, calling every employee myself to let him go, tell him to go. As a matter of fact, though, I'm kind of proud that I told all my employees a day before they shut us down. to go file for unemployment. And they all thought I was crazy again. And all my employees were able to get their unemployment in before we were closed. So that's a big deal. That was a big win for me. I also sit on the board at a local hospital. So I was really able to help people through the pandemic, as far as masks. And I had very good, because of China, I buy a lot of stuff in China for the hotels, furniture and stuff like that. So I was really able to get a lot of masks, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of masks. So I was able to have drive-throughs in my hotel to give out masks to all, I had 1,000 employees at the time. So I'm giving everybody masks, and that was a big deal. You couldn't get masks. So there's some good and bad. Feeding people was nice. Feeding all the restaurateurs, families in LA was nice. I did that a couple of times at the Strand House.
Publicly, you talk a lot about giving back. And I have yet to meet a restaurateur who, when you ask, why did you open your restaurant? It's always about community. And so few of us have the time or the money or the bandwidth to give back in the ways that you have. Can you talk to me about community service, community outreach, and the efforts that you've put in over the last couple of decades?
I think it's important to do it. I say that because I'm not going to go clip a coupon to go eat a hamburger at Brewco, but I'm going to go to Brewco because they donated the beer and the barbecue at the baseball parade for the local school district. Those are the things that I think is how you want to market any of your business. You want to be part of the community. There are restaurants in our downtown that don't do shit for anybody, and people know that. And then there's people that do a lot. I used to always run into Michael Greenberg, who's the president and founder of Skechers, and this guy Adam Goldberg. He started Fresh Brothers Pizza, and myself. So I would always make the joke: Adam would bring the pizza, I'd bring the booze, and Mike would bring the money. And we were at every charity event together for years, and we became best friends because of it. So, there's certain people that give back, and giving back, it's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie to you. I can tell you that yesterday I was in a meeting with the hospital, putting together a big party of my own for the new emergency room. These are big events that you have to put on, but they come back in spades.
Let's talk about Adam. So you two were both local to Manhattan Beach, and when he left Fresh Brothers, he took a leadership role in Rockin' Brews, right?
Yes, he was the best hire. I had this cosmic day. It's November 18th, and I hired him on November 18th just to make sure it'd work out. And he was he did that thing which I've never had to do, thank God. Take that private equity money. And when he was let go, I remember calling Michael Greenberg, because we're all friends, and I said, Michael, he wants this much money. I've never paid anybody that much money. And Michael said, you'd be a fucking idiot if you didn't hire him. The guy is tireless worker, works twice as hard as I do, and he's 10 years my junior, and he's still on that course of trying to get to the top. And he is literally right now, he's in Oklahoma right now doing another sale for another casino, Rock and Brew. So he's always traveling, probably travels 2 weeks a month, which I can't stand traveling. So I only go to the grand openings, which are fun because you get to go on the plane with Kiss.
I want to look back and I want to look forward. So first I want to look back. You've got almost 50 years under your belt as a restaurateur at this point, if we round up.
I'd say 40.
I'd say if we were rounding up. When you look back, are there threads? Is it easy to connect the dots and say, these are the things that I did consistently that led to success, and these are things that I did somewhat consistently that always created issues for me?
No, I just say you have to be nimble. Like, everything changes and quickly. Like during COVID, what do you call it? When the people come pick up the food and they deliver it for you, third party.
Yeah.
That was really easy to do. And then all of a sudden it became very expensive and it really slowed down. And then, so we just came up with a plan, hey, call us to order online we have this POS system now. I'm not saying good or bad, but It's good for me. It's called Toast, but it does so many things that the old POS systems didn't do. So now people can order from your website, right? Comes prints right in your kitchen, right to the expo, and the food's ready to go. So now people can just pull in front of the restaurant or behind the restaurant. We run the food out. They have a phone number to call the hostess, and because people want to save that 25%, there is definitely an economic downturn. We don't see it so much in my Manhattan Beach stores, but nationwide, there's a squeeze on the middle class happening right now, and they're not spending as much money, so they're looking for value. We have happy hours now. We have Badass Burger Wednesdays at Rock and Brews, and we have different promotions at different restaurants because people do gravitate to value, which they weren't so concerned, a couple years ago about value. So you just got to move with the times. Otherwise, you're going to be obsolete.
And
I just think about like walking into a restaurant. You can tell the restaurants that aren't run well because the tabletops are scratched and there's rips in the vinyl, and like when do they fix it? Like when a spring pops out and gets you. I don't know. You got to fix it right when the tear starts. I mean, if you want to be if the dining room's not clean, shit, I don't want to see the kitchen. So I'm just curious. That's when I know I'm at a poorly run restaurant.
when you look forward, what does growth look like?
I don't know that I want to grow that. My wife would love hearing this, but it's not. I always say I don't want to grow anymore because I'm really content with where I live and what I have. I mean, I must get a call every week to buy Shade Hotels. I'm not lying to you. Every week or two, I get a call from somebody to buy it. I don't want to sell my hotels. They're an annuity for my family. These hotels will take care of the family when I'm long gone, and I really enjoy. Like last night, my daughter flew in. One of my daughters and my granddaughter flew in from London, and I get to eat at a restaurant, and I had a tomato in my garden. It was the size of they called it a pumpkin. It was so big. It must have been that big of a tomato. And I have a restaurant. Strand House does a great tomato salad in the summer. So I brought the tomato there. They cut it up and served it with the burrata and the caramelized balsamic onions, basil, and then a bottle of Domaine Ott. Then we moved over to another restaurant across the street, and we had steak frites, and just what a great night. So that's the beauty of owning these restaurants is being able to dine out cheaply.
What should we steal from you? What are the tactics, tools, and strategies that you've adopted over the years that would serve the people listening well?
Under promise, over deliver. That's one of my key things. Stand behind your mistakes. You're going to make a mistake. You don't know when you go in that the restaurant, 2 cooks didn't show up. I mean, that's another thing. Jesus Christ, call offs. I never had call offs before COVID. Now it's like calling off is a new pastime for employees. They call off all the time. But you never know like what's going on in the restaurant. So sometimes you can have a bad experience at a restaurant, and the manager just told you what was going on. Hey, I'm so sorry, cook didn't show up. I've got the appetizers on me tonight. Sorry you had to wait an hour. Man, I would be so happy to hear that. But when you call a manager and they hide in the office and don't come down to talk to you, or you don't see a manager ever on the floor, that's what you got. You've just got to be engaging, and you've got to take the calls. When people call you with complaint, anytime there's a real serious complaint, I call them myself. We call it a code red. So they'll call me at home. Something happened. We did this. We didn't have his reservation. We did it for the wrong day. And then we resolve it. Very rarely. The only time we ever lose a customer is when the customer deserves to be lost. I hope that rings true to everybody. There's a few customers that push you just a little too hard, and it's time to go.
Our industry is filled with all of these unspoken rules and traditions about how things should be done. How would you like to see our industry turn the tables to create a better future for all of us?
Well, I think some of the problems in the industry right now is the amplified minimum wage. So I find it very unfair that a server makes $20 an hour minimum wage and a cook makes $20 minimum wage, but the server gets, $500 a night in tips. So trying to level that playing field, like I know some states that we're in with Rock and Brews, if you're a server, you make quite a bit less than minimum wage, like half of it. I don't know how to make parity, but it seems a little unfair. And then with this new minimum wage in California, everything changed overnight. The price of everything changed. Food, literally, I don't remember doing menus but once a year. Like, you know what I mean? Like price change. Kind of do your fiscals at the end of the year. Well, our food cost was 31%. We got to raise our prices, get it back down to 29%. Well, now, during post COVID, we were changing our menus every 90 days, every 60 days. And then some things just had to take off the menu. Couldn't sell crab or lobster for a year or two. It was just so expensive. So it's definitely been a challenging time, but it'll get better. It always does.